My Little Nightmares, a collection of short horror stories, Episode 1, In the Blood of Innocence. Ethan and Claire Whitmore were childhood sweethearts who seemed to have it all. Together they built a small bakery, saved enough for a modest home on the coast, and with Claire's gift for creating warmth, became the perfect place to raise their soon-to-be family. For a time, all their sacrifice felt worth it, but perfection has a way of cracking. In the quiet corners of their new home, shadows seemed to stretch longer, and what once felt like a dream began to sour into something neither of them could name. After it began quietly, Ethan's job slipped through his fingers. One day he was indispensable, the next day he was expendable. The bakery couldn't cover everything, and the security they'd built started to crumble. Tension seeped into their once warm home, and though Claire tried to reassure him, a quiet unease had already begun to take root. Desperate and afraid, they had no idea what opportunity, or so it seemed, awaited them at their next maternity appointment. A mysterious woman, aware of their despair, seemed to hear their unspoken plea in the waiting room. She explained that she had once been in their position and suggested a small, unknown village that offered housing in exchange for contributing to the community. Exclusive to those deemed deserving, she handed them a card with the village's address, should they wish to become part of it. Weary and sure, Ethan and Claire dismissed it until a burglary left them tragically stripped of almost everything. Soon after, with little left to lose, they made the fateful decision and arranged to visit the village. After a long drive through winding woodland roads, they arrived at Harbour's Nest, a village almost too perfect to be real. Couples bustled about, tending farms and tailoring clothes, carrying out their trades with quiet harmony that immediately put Ethan and Claire at ease. The air smelled faintly of flowers, almost unnaturally sweet, and the sunlight lingered a little too long over the cobblestone streets. Amy, the village's apparent leader, took a liking to them, and having judged them favourably, personally escorted them to their new home after they passed the interview. Everything felt idyllic and serene, yet they couldn't shake the sense that something, just out of sight, was quietly watching. As they approached their new home, the sound of children playing and giggling drifted through the air. A charming two-storey house awaited them, complete with a wide porch, picket fences, and a garden made for sunny afternoons. Here Claire would relish her maternity leave, baking treats for the local school, while Ethan would step into the role of head chef at the village restaurant, embracing the new life that seemed almost too perfect to be true. Setting in, they began to make a good name for the Whitmore household, eagerly joining social gatherings and community events. Yet surely, something was lurking just around the corner, waiting to shatter their dream come true. On her usual morning walk, Claire noticed a neighbour she had not yet seen tending her garden. The woman was painfully thin, fragile and bore dark, fading bruises across her arms. Her movements were jerky, almost puppet-like, and her hollow eyes flickered nervously as if something unseen was watching. Concerned, Claire stepped closer. The woman's voice was low and trembled, barely coherent, yet each word cut through the morning air like a warning. Things aren't as they seem. It all starts with the children. You have to watch the children. Even as she spoke, the wind seemed to whisper through the garden, carrying the words further, as if the village itself was listening. The woman's words echoed relentlessly in Claire's mind as she tried to sleep. It all starts with the children. What did it mean? Was something watching her, waiting? From the corner of the room, a presence pressed forward, malevolent, unnatural. A small writhing shadow emerged, its movements twisted and grotesque, too deliberate, too wrong for any child. Its eyes are what pasteurized glowed with a cold, hungry intelligence, filled with something cruel and alien. Then came the sound, a wet, sinister clicking, like teeth probing, testing, invading her thoughts. Every twitch and inch of its body radiated malice. Claire's blood ran cold as she realized the truth. This was no child. It was a parasite, a predator hiding a human shell, watching, scheming, waiting to strike. Her fixed gaze was shattered by screams of terror, so piercing they woke her partner, who ran to the window, desperate to find the source. "Claire! Claire! Call for help," he shouted. But it was too late. In the distance, the pale, fragile woman's house was engulfed in flames, the fire blazing unnaturally bright against the night sky. The air reeked of smoke and something fouler, something almost alive. The screams faded into a settling silence of death. And there outside the fiery house stood the toddler, eerily calm, too still, its small eyes glinting with a malevolent intelligence. Only minutes ago it had been safely in Claire's room, now it watched them, and its gaze was a dark awareness that should not belong to a child. As the days passed, the remnants of fire and debris seemed to vanish, almost as if nothing had happened, and the community resumed its unsettling normal routines. Terrified, Claire begged Ethan to leave, though she feared speaking too much of what had occurred, afraid she might meet the same fate as their neighbour. With nowhere else to go, Ethan tried to persuade her to stay a few more weeks while things settled. Apprehensively she agreed, but her unborn baby had other plans. Labour began suddenly, and with no other options they were rushed to Harbour Hospital, both feeling unwary, and after many tense hours the birth finally began. But once again, things took a dark turn. Baby wasn't coming, and an emergency C-section was necessary. As Ethan gowned up, Claire, terrified for her unborn child, was wheeled down the cold, sterile corridor. Passing the door, her eyes widened in fleeting horror. Had pain relief distorted her mind, or was this real? Behind the glass she glimpsed shapes, blurry, writhing forms that twisted and coiled in the dim light. She couldn't make them out clearly, but the sense of movement of life, of something alien and wrong, made her stomach churn. The maternity ward was no place for this, and yet it was happening right there, just beyond the door. What horrors could this mean for her child, and for them all? As the effects of the epidural and other drugs wore off, Claire was finally presented with a bundle of joy, a safe, perfect little boy, and most importantly, human. For a fleeting moment, her fears melted away as the doctor congratulated her, and she embraced her new family, sharing the moment with the man she'd loved since childhood. Later, a therapist visited, explaining that the immense stress of losing their home, the burglary and recent tragedies could have distorted her mind, or was it simply part of a plan to convince her that all was not as dark as it seemed? She had to trust her instincts. She had to leave and keep her family safe. Patiently contemplating her decision, she awaited her husband's return from the supermarket, every nerve alert to unseen dangers. Each creak of the house, each whisper of wind made her heart race. Then came a knock at the door. But wait, it wasn't Ethan. She was met by a dark figure pretending to be familiar and reassuring, yet exuding something cold and wrong. Her heart sank. What had happened to Ethan? Miss Whitmore, I'm sorry. There's been a terrible accident. No, not my Ethan. Claire sank to the floor. Ethan, distracted by his new life and their child, had crossed the road and been struck by a car. More death, more destruction. Harbour's Nest was no longer a safe haven. It was a sadistic torment, a hell wrapped in smiles. As she scrambled to preserve her life, a sudden clarity hit her. She realised the truth of what she'd glimpsed in the hospital. The writhing, bloodied forms, the unnatural shapes. Everything fell into place, and the full horror of Harbour's Nest pressed down on her. The once happy couple had embraced lovingly, side by side through thick and thin. There was no Ethan without Claire, and no Claire without Ethan. They were a team, meant to grow old together and become a family. As his warmth vanished and his soul left, despair and loneliness engulfed her. Still, she couldn't give up. Not now. Not with the baby. Not after witnessing the horrors of the hospital and the creators' delisted experiments firsthand. Nursed her son, she struggled to recall what she'd seen. Names. Her own child's among them, were listed against tanks holding contorted, devilish forms. Wait, not creatures but parasites. In that moment she understood why the woman had said, "It starts with the children." They were hosts. The most precious gift of life was being used as a parasitic vessel for a new breed of evil, preying on vulnerable families. Rows of teeth designed to latch onto the delicate bodies of babies, draining their lives, replacing the blood of innocence with something far darker and more terrifying, a substance that spread destruction and death wherever it touched. Her train of thought was abruptly shattered by a searing pain. Blood soaked her shirt, dripping down the chin of her once sweet baby. In an instant he was gone. Where her son had been, something unnatural writhed, controlled by the parasite, eyes gleaming with dark, alien intelligence. Harper's nest had claimed him, and Claire realised with a suffocating certainty the child was no longer human.